So basically, in Mr. Kane's early life, he was taken away from his original parents to kind of have like a foster father, which is Mr. Thatcher. We don't really ever get a big story on it.
Yeah, I don't
it's
know
kind
if
of
it's
just
common in that era.
yeah, just like
in
they,
the 1800s.
which his mother wanted him to go because he was getting abused by his dad. It seemed, and
just all around kind of offering a better
Yeah.
life to him.
yeah,
But obviously, you're a 7-year-old kid, and,
yeah.
and you lose your parents right there. It's definitely going
This
to
is-
leave impact.
This is definitely one of the big driving factors we see towards the end of the movie. Probably why he's so sad all the time and why he can't have good relationships, or why he's searching for good relationships. And I don't know if he seems to ruin them or if it's just so.
I think the big point when it comes to him and like the way his relationships work is he doesn't feel comfortable because he didn't have a mother and father.
Yeah.
So he's always seeking love
Yeah.
from other people. But then he can't actually give it back. Like, I don't know if that's just, where he grew and how he learned. But yeah, he always he's like an attention seeker or like a love seeker, but he doesn't know what to do with it when he gets it. He's super motivated
Yeah.
up until the point that he has it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, parents kind of let him go away with Mr. Thatcher.
Then we get a couple of different time skips, but we get to the point where he's a successful young man.
Big point in those time skips and all that. He's like a big philanthropist.
Yeah,
It's kind of the age old story of like being a young liberal and an old conservative, right? Like,
we can see that especially because it really upsets Thatcher. He was a banker or in some kind of financial business, and Thatcher seeing his kind of what he considers his kid. We can tell later in the movie that Mr. Kane and Thatcher don't get along at all.
No.
But this is a big dilemma for Thatcher, and it makes they scuffle about it. They fight
Always.
about it.
Yeah,
and
yeah. Especially when he goes kind of crazy with philanthropy.
Yeah.
And gives everything away.
Yeah.
He's like, I think he loses $1 million in his first journalistic pursuit.
and he has that statement about, well, if I'm losing $1 million
$1 million
a year,
a year, I guess we'll go out of business in 20 years or something like that.
And so we get this little bit of background on him, see why and how he's successful. Kane Papers is popping up all over the country. He's got his two main co-contributors, which is Leland and the shorter guy.
Yeah.
Forgetting his name right now.
Can't recall that guy's name.
Leland was a big co-contributor, probably his closest friend, and the movie kind of shows us how they stray apart.
And it all comes down to journalistic integrity. Early on, he writes his declaration of intent. Yeah, and it's to always give the people the news, to be truthful, and 10 years down the line or however long it's been, he tears it up in front of Leland, and doesn't care about it. Let's move plot.
Yeah, let's brush towards these things that kind of happen in Kane's personal life that affect his downfall. So he has that first marriage with the niece of the president, and this is like pushing his life forward with fame and politics.
He gets interested in politics from her. I think there's a couple quotes where it's like, she's like, "Oh, your uncle's the president, but soon your husband will be."
And we get these scenes where they're showing us grow astray from each other, basically, and essentially it gets to the point where he doesn't love her anymore, and then he ends up having that affair.
Yeah, he has the affair and
with a younger woman that's.
He seems to just like her naivety.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's because he's in the dirt of politics and nobody's very naive in politics, but he runs into this silly girl on the street who laughs at him for getting mud on him and falls in love with her for whatever reason. I think because, a girl like that seeking an important man, but she also doesn't know about him at first.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like
I think that's part of the things that like you don't know who I am.
he gets to use his
Yeah.
charisma all over again
Yeah.
because at this point everybody knows
Yeah.
Kane. Like everybody loves him. So I think he's seeking. He wants to seek love.
Yeah.
Once he has it, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right. So
And he actually uses that love so much because he's in politics. This mistress gets found by his main
Geddes,
politician,
or
Mr. Geddes, yeah, and so he threatens to blackmail him or extort him for his affair that's going on. And at this point, Kane is set with the dilemma, like, should my politics career matter more, or should I break up with my wife to be with this other woman that I
Right.
love? And then that's a big point to where we see Kane and his driving forces. And then at the same time, Leland and Kane had been fighting for years or something. He sent him off to Chicago.
yeah, well, he wanted to get away from Kane. He
Yeah.
was sick of Kane, so he wanted to go to Chicago, and you can tell Kane has held that against him because so he ends up breaking up with his wife. After his wife leaves him, he all-ins and straight up marries. I forget what slander they use, other girl or something in the news. It shows some paper flashes, you know. And so it's kind of a scandal, but like he instantly marries her. He loved her singing,
Yeah.
but she was never any good at it.
Yeah, and
his huge amount of money means I can build you a theater in Chicago, a huge opera
he gets
house.
an entire opera, or she
And-
gets an entire opera.
So to move back to Leland and his kind of fight,
Yeah.
Leland reviews the opera, which everybody knows is garbage. Leland loves Kane still somewhere enough that to slander his wife, he has to get wasted.
Yeah.
So he's passed out drunk on the desk when Kane shows up and asks, where's the review?
With a unfinished review, probably about a quarter done or something.
Yeah, so he pulls it. It's really hateful towards his wife, and
He finishes it.
he finishes it
with the same exact case that we can tell Kane's feeling deep down.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
this
So he knows
becomes-
his wife's no good
Yeah.
either, but he wants to impress. He can't help but try to
And-
impress everyone around him.
And he fires Leland. This is kind of his last true friendship we see dissolve.
Yeah, and Leland's pretty honest about that.
Yeah.
He's like, you had nobody.
Yeah, and then him and his wife end up moving to Xandu, which that's where the first scene of the movie is.
Yeah.
Kane dead in
So
Xanadu.
you know that he has a private island before it all starts. But yeah, he's built this Xanadu place he owns, and once again, just constantly trying to impress Susan. Is that his second wife?
Second wife.
Um,
And then we see it all fall apart really quickly towards the end, and
He's become
it's really
this complete
because
misanthrope.
just
He doesn't want, like I said, he wants to gain adoration, but now he has all this adoration. He doesn't know what to do with it.
he's just became a hermit
Yeah,
essentially.
so he buys this cool thing and he gets to be in the news. Oh, they bought
Yeah.
the Pharaoh's statue or whatever. And so now he's become this misanthrope that doesn't want to be around anyone and has this mansion full of everything but still nothing.
And it's his downfall. It drives Susan away, and then he utters the word Rosebud, and it seems Mr. Thomas never can figure out what Rosebud means.
First he's seeking women and women
Yeah.
named Rose or
Yeah.
Rosebud, and then
and we finally figure out in the end it was his sled. that he had.
So
when
they're
he was
at
taken away.
Xanadu, and Thompson's like, man, it turns out it could be anything.
Yeah.
There's a great quote earlier on that kind of hints to what it'll be. Not that we know at the time, like halfway through the film. They said that what was it? They said it's probably not a person but a thing.
Yeah.
That he
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the quote. And so it turns out that way. After Thompson's visited all these people, he goes to Xanadu to ask the staff. And, he's like, the one guy tries to bribe him a little bit on, what he can have, and that doesn't say much. At the end, he's like, oh, he had everything.
Yeah.
So it probably wasn't a person or a thing.
And it was this sled he cherished from his childhood, the last memory he had right before he was taken
Taken by
taken by Thatcher.
Thatcher.
And I think the entire movie's really just about Kane's sadness and desperate mentality, I guess, where person that had all anyone could ask for and so successful with his job,
but he didn't have a childhood.
Yeah, didn't have a childhood.
It's funny. I think in modern day, a lot of times it's the conversation we have about Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
The dude was in the Jackson 5 and just didn't get to grow up.
Yeah,
and it's funny if you look. You might have been young, but I remember on TV there were videos of Michael Jackson just walking around buying stuff. Yeah. Like that was kind of his thing, and he's just
I've seen that.
Yeah, he's just this unrealistically wealthy man who still is missing like a core component of himself. So he fills that hole with everything, and he can, but it doesn't matter because you don't get that thing.
That's kind of where we see Susan kind of gave him a bit of it about a bit of Kane's childhood back. I felt like just like her obliviousness and her.
It's very whimsical.
Yeah, but overall, I think the movie's sound design, the way the films are taken and the way it's shot, way ahead of its time. For sure.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know where a concise plot, like shot for shot, dialogue scenes like that came from. Mm-hmm. Like we see a little bit of it in Joan of Arc, even though it's silent. You get a shot reverse, you get a face and text, and then another face and text. But this thing just does it so on point. And like I said, Scorsese definitely influenced. Who did I mention? Hitchcock. Like I don't know if Hitchcock had started making movies the same time this was coming around, but another early guy who just like you can tell he is just sucking up this style of like zooms on important factors, so you get a lot of show don't tell. There's really no show don't tell, I'm sure, before this. A lot of times, especially in the silent world, you just write it in text what it is. So I mean that zoom, like nothing is said, man. Nothing is said. Like the most important part of the movie, Rosebud, the sled. Nothing is said. They're just burning everything in an incinerator, and they throw a sled in, and it's Rosebud.
And they're to change the topic a little bit, the sound design in that movie, because I'm sure this is right around the time where they first got sound on film, and you'd see in some scenes they completely overlaid the sound.
Yeah, a lot of
someone's
ADR.
Voice. Yeah, whenever
talkies.
they would.
In this era, or probably in the 30s, is when movies were a thing and talkies became a thing. I think is what they actually were calling them, because before that, dialogue wasn't an option. You had your silent films. So
and some of the stuff I thought was definitely, you could tell it was ahead of its time, because not that it looked janky, but it just like I couldn't imagine seeing it in one of these movies. But we get it right in the scene where Kane's mother's talking about giving away to Thatcher, the rolling scene with the camera coming all the way back, and with those giant cameras back then, I couldn't imagine the contraption they had.
Yeah, like a use of rails pans.
Because she's walking towards the camera and it's coming back. I don't know if you remember that one, but
I do. It's beautiful. All of the camera control stuff is it's well done. It fits the narrative. Mm-hmm. There's no fluff really, but there's beauty in every shot's thought. Yeah. And let's talk for a minute about Orson Welles, who was kind of the original, we've called it Renaissance man in the past. Like, this dude was a famous actor, and then boom, he directs. I think this is his first. I think he maybe made a few that weren't as important. Yeah. But this is a guy who's a writer, a director, and an actor in his own film, and made a pretty much the masterpiece. I think we can say that. Everybody says it's no Citizen Kane or it is. Yeah. This is the historical masterpiece. Yeah. And I mean, I think it lives up to it.
I had a great time watching that movie. It's like one of those super long movies now, kind of like There Will Be Blood, or
I keep throwing Scorsese out,
movies. All of his movies are like these epic, cultural phenomenon type movie.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know
weird
if
to
that's
see
the word
one like
for it, but
40, 50
yeah.
years before
Yeah,
guys like that were kind of making their thing.
yeah,
You know?
and we could go on about this movie for
Yeah, we're
for
already pretty
hours.
over time.
We've kind of went a little bit over. Want to apologize for that, but
I hope we covered
it was
enough.
yeah. I think I tried my best. So I want to thank you all for watching. And yeah.
Thank you.